The New York Mets are currently one of the best teams in baseball, but with the trade deadline a couple of months away, we've already been hearing rumors about what David Stearns might do. Let's talk about it right here on the True Mets Talk podcast. What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP. Please, before we get fully into this video, talking about a couple of outfielders that the Mets could target at the deadline. Right here, this guy, David Stearns, is working overtime, but so am I. Please do smash those thumbs up buttons and subscribe to the channel for more Mets content, pregame, postgame streams, pre-recorded videos such as this one and everything else in between. The New York Mets have their sights set on the deadline, but also October in what should be a very fun rest of the regular season going into playoff baseball. With the New York Mets currently 19 games over 500 at the time of this recording, we are talking about two potential outfielders that we've heard that could make sense for the New York Mets, especially up the middle in center field, and moving Tyrone Taylor over into that fourth outfielder role that he was brought in here to be. Tyrone Taylor is a tremendous player and has been ever since coming over in that trade that David Stearns made from the Brewers, transitioning over to the Mets. He's been nothing but great defensively, offensively as well in spurts. But again, Mets fans, let's not sell ourselves short, is my only thing here that I will say before talking about the names that we're going to be discussing today. Is that Tyrone Taylor's a great ball player. We know that. Is he a starting outfielder on a championship caliber team that has championship caliber aspirations? I'm going to say no. His role is best suited as a late defensive replacement and a bat off the bench with spot starts in between. That is what he was brought in here to be. The Mets are still trying to figure out the center field situation, especially with Brandon Nimmo moving over to being a full-time left fielder. And this is the opportunity at the deadline to do so. Let's talk about Jarren Duran because there has been so much smoke surrounding the Red Sox situation and trying to improve their team, but also some of the more exciting prospects that they got coming up recently. Roman Anthony making his debut and finding some success in his second game with a RBI double as well. Looks like he is the real deal. And Jiren Duran's time in Boston has been anything but sure. He was a former All-Star in 2024, playing mostly center field. He's kind of shifted over to left field predominantly so far in 2025. And he's still doing pretty well at face value with the overall numbers in his 68 games appeared in. 271 batting average, 4 home runs, not much pop, but a guy that is going to play hard. He plays good defense, and he could definitely shift back over to center field for whichever team that trades for him. The Dodgers are talking about it. Bleacher Report has been putting out a lot of trade packages talking about Jarren Duran going to the Dodgers. And that's also something, the competing force here amongst all of these teams in the NL trying to improve their lineup and improve their defensive schema, which is also what David Stearns has stressed the importance of ever since becoming the president of baseball operations for the New York Mets, is the importance of defense. And this would be a move in which you don't really necessarily drop off. I do think Tyrone Taylor probably is still the better fielder of the two in terms of range, but you don't drop off, right, in terms of the defensive prowess all that much between the two players, and you add a better bat to the lineup, and it strengthens the overall lineup that has been a little bit inconsistent. They're heating up as of recent, but objectively, they've been inconsistent here in the early goings of the 2025 season. And they're looking to add another force to the lineup to change that. But we'll talk about here in just a second why Jarren Duran can be so impactful to this lineup that has struggled immensely thus far with runners in scoring position. Again, they are heating up, they're coming around, but adding a guy like this that can hit with runners in scoring position could be a very good deal for the New York Mets in terms of trying to get to that World Series appearance and finally win one for Queens. 23% strikeout rate, which is right around league average and right around where he has hovered in his career, and a 6.2 walk percentage that I definitely think has room to improve and can go up. And we've seen this before with a guy like Javi Baez back in 2021, where maybe the selectiveness was a little bit of an issue, but when the Mets traded For Javi Baez, the approach changed and he became more selective, thus boosting the on-base percentage. And when you get Jarren Duran on the base paths, he is a menace out there, which is exactly what the Mets have long awaited, right? A guy that's going to wreak havoc on the bases. We've seen it so far with Luis Angel Acuna in short spurts. Same thing with Jose Siri before he went down with the injury. But we need more stolen bases for this team. I think that that's one way the Mets can elevate their game in the second half is by adding a guy that has speed on the bases. And I'm not just talking about stolen bases here. The ability to know that if there is any ball in the gap, that runner, Jarren Duran, if he's on first base, is going to come around and score. And maybe that decentivizes stealing the base anyways and putting more trust in the lineup. But I think that if you are a hitter, having confidence that there's another speedy guy in this team, and if he gets on base, all I got to do is hit the ball in the gap, that's going to pay a lot of dividends. But let's talk about Jarren Duran's numbers here as well in 2025 with runners in scoring position because they're not all that bad. He's hitting 311 with runners in scoring position so far this season. He's getting on base in the same situation at a 354 clip. And again, the OPS, right? There's still some gap to gap power left to be desired. He's not this, home run hitter that he might have been in 2024's All-Star season when he hit 20 plus. He's probably not going to get there again this season, but if he gets on base, this is another guy that we're talking about. Speedy guy getting on base for this team, for the Juan Sotos, for the Francisco Lindors, for the Pete Alonsos, right? If Jeff McNeil starts to heat up and continues to do what he's doing over the past 2 weeks, him as well, this is a guy that's going to make this lineup immediately better. But there is a caveat to all of this because this guy is not going to come for cheap for the New York Mets or any other team that trades for him. He's got 3 years of control left on his contract even after this 2025 season. He's 28 years old, and so therefore he's going to be under a team-friendly deal through his age 31 season just about, and that comes with an $8 million club option for the 2026 season. And maybe the Red Sox are understanding of this in him entering the prime of his career and saying, listen, we're just going to wait it out because at the end of the day, they can go ahead and trade him in the offseason or next deadline and still get a pretty decent return. So all of this to say is that, yes, the Mets probably are interested, but at the end of the day, the Red Sox are going to be the ones calling the shots because of the contract and because of how much control he has left. And I think that's pretty obvious. You're talking about two, I wouldn't even say three, but definitely two baseline top 10 prospects in return for Jarren Duran. You all make the call. Would you rather have somebody like that, his impactfulness, the age, the contract, the years that he has left on his contract, and these overall numbers that I just stated, or someone like a guy like Cedric Mullins, who we've been talking about over maybe the past couple of seasons with the Mets being interested in trying to get that center field help, right? I've always liked Cedric Mullins' game. Again, a really good defender out there in terms of the range. Doesn't really have the best arm, but the range is really good defensively. The overall numbers with the bat in 2025 aren't really that great. I think he's hitting below 230. But when we talk about the need for guys to come in here and hit with runners in scoring position, these numbers also aren't so bad for Cedric Mullins in the Baltimore Orioles uniform and what's been a very disappointing season for that organization so far in the first half of this 2025 season. They came in with a lot of expectations. They've had a lot of expectations for a while. They're still a very young team. And therefore, you got to think, does Cedric Mullins, already being 30 years old, hitting the market as an unrestricted free agent after this season, does he really fit into that schema of what the Baltimore Orioles got going on? I think that if anybody was traded in terms of outfielders, you're looking at the most likely being Robert Jr., and I've talked about him in a previous video. I'll link that video down below. He's not really having a great 2025 season either, and also Cedric Mullins. Still a little bit skeptical if the Red Sox part ways with Duran, but we'll see. Because now we're talking about organizational fits, prospects coming up. And we've seen this young talent surge around the league where teams are calling up their top prospects and they're not waiting anymore, quite frankly. They're making the move for these prospects to come up, especially when you talk about the top 10 in the pipeline, like Roman Anthony was, right? Jack Caglianone as well for the Royals as of recent. Teams are starting to rely a lot more on their prospects. in this season from what I've seen. And so maybe that makes the Jarren Duran situation a little bit more enticing for the Red Sox in the potential return that they can get. But if David Stearns, right, does not want to trade a haul of prospects in the top 5 in the system, right, maybe even top 10 in the system, depending on what the asking price is, for Jarren Duran, Cedric Mullins is a really good backup option. But at that point, you're talking about needing him to produce and kind of thrive with these numbers right here. 273 batting average, a 353 on base percentage, and 898 OPS with a couple of home runs with runners in scoring position. Because the one thing that the Mets don't need to do is add depth to the outfield. They need a true starter, which is, if in a roundabout way, as I've been ranting on this video, why I would prefer Jarren Duran, because he has the potential to be an everyday starter in center field for years to come. And Cedric Mullins, I'm not quite sure what the interest level of re-signing him at the end of the season would be. I'm not. And we don't really need a guy that's going to replicate Tyrone Taylor's numbers, even though Cedric Mullins has better numbers with runners in scoring position. I'm talking about the overall offensive production. The clear get, I would think at this point, if the asking price is right in the mind of David Stearns, is Jarren Duran. Cedric Mullins would be a nice, I guess, secondary option. I will say that. The overall offensive numbers aren't good. I understand it, but he knows how to hit with runners in scoring position. He's a little bit more of a veteran as well. So Mets fans, let me know. What do you think of these two options? You can toss in Robert Jr.'s name, but I think a lot of people have kind of jumped off that bandwagon, that conversation around Robert Jr. that's been had over the past couple of seasons as well, in addition to Cedric Mullins. But now another name enters the fold in Jarren Duran, and that's really why I wanted to make this video, is talking about Jarren Duran, the years of control he has left, and what it could take to get him, and also competing with other teams like the Dodgers that are looking for outfield help as well, because Michael Conforto is not it over there in LA. This should be a very busy time for the New York Mets during this trade deadline upcoming. I know we got a long ways away, but with the Mets doing what they are doing right now, with the current personnel, with Tyrone Taylor being the everyday center fielder and not really getting that offensive production out of him, it's awesome to look forward to ways that this team can improve to build a true championship roster more so than it already is. Let's go Mets. Gotta trust in David Stearns. Whether it's the pitching front, whether it's the outfield front, or whether they shock me and get a true DH, because we still are not talking about Jesse Winker sidelined for a while now with that injury, but we're still talking about this platoon DH that's been going on ever since that 2022 season, and which I don't like. So maybe they go out there and get a DH. So let me know what you think in the comment section. I appreciate you, boy CP. Until next video, peace.